Greetings everyone. In this video, we'll be looking at the Cloudflare D1 serverless database. And as a bonus, we'll also be looking at the Drizzle ORM. And you'll learn how to introspect an existing database to generate a schema, a Drizzle schema. And finally, we'll be looking at how to define relations between your schemas so that you can take advantage of the more advanced querying features of Drizzle. So I think it's something that you're going to enjoy. You'll hopefully see the power in D1 that I've seen. So let's begin. The first thing that you might want to ask is, what exactly is D1? D1 is basically SQLite that runs in the cloud. It runs on Cloudflare's edge platform, so it's globally replicated. So you can have confidence that it's a database that can scale to handle applications of significance. So let's get started. So we'll start by copying the command to create a new project with the Cloudflare CLI. We'll go to my directory and run the command. It will give us various options and we can select the default options. Okay, so let's deploy the application to make sure that everything is working correctly. Okay, so now we see that our application is running. Let's check our API routes. Okay, so let's have a look at what's being generated. Okay, so let's have a look at package.json. We see that we have some dev dependencies installed. These are necessary to work with the Wrangler CLI. We have some scripts to make it easier to build and deploy the application. And let's check our wrangler.toml file. This is the configuration file to work with Cloudflare workers. This is basically to say which services that we want to work with. Later on, we'll be modifying this file to use the D1 database. Okay, let's have a look at the next config. Okay, so here we include a setup dev platform function. This is necessary to use the Cloudflare features locally. And finally, we have this file where we declare the bindings that we'll be using. So we'll be defining the D1 database binding here. So this makes it accessible to the application. Okay, so that's basically it for what's necessary to work with Cloudflare, and we'll continue by creating the database. And to do that, we'll use the Wrangler CLI. Create, and let's call the database DemoDB. Okay, so this gives us the information that we need to add to our Wrangler configuration. So we just copy and paste it into the file. We copy to the end of the file. Okay, so we've created the database. And now we need to set up the structure of the database with the tables and some seed data. Previously, I had asked ChatGPT for some assistance to help us to generate the tables necessary for a to-do project and some sample data. So we'll just copy the code from there. Okay, let's set up a DB folder. We'll create that in the source folder. And we'll call that seed.sql. And let's copy the sample data. Okay, so previously I had some problems getting this SQL file to work with Wrangler because of the comments. So I'll just remove them. Okay, and now we can go ahead and initialize the database, and we do that with npx wrangler D1 execute demo db, and we'll specify the file. This should be in source dbc.sql, and we'll be working with the local database. Okay, so that looks to have been successful, and while we're at it, let's initialize the remote database as well. So we just change the local to remote. Okay, and to verify that it worked, let's have a look at our Cloudflare dashboard. So we have our app here, and let's look in the D1 section, and we have our demo DB here. It has 3 tables, and it's already populated with data, so it looks like our initialization was successful. So now what we need to do is we need to connect our application to the database. And we had one step missing from what we did the last time. So we had to add the database to the Wrangler configuration, and we also need to update the types that the application will be using, and we are going to do that with this command here. So it updates the file, and this basically says that we're going to use the D1 database, and we're going to bind it to this DB environment variable. So with that done, we should be able to access the database, but to verify it, let's write some code. Let's go back to our API route. So right now, the route just displays this hello world text, but let's do a log to the console to verify that we can access our database. And in order to do that, we'll need to use a get request context function to access our environment. So we'll say const db is assigned get request context that env.db. Okay, let's run that. Let's run our local server. Let's have a look at our API route. It says hello world, and let's look at the console. Okay, so it says DB constructor, which means that we have access to our database. So with that, we can write a query to get some data from our database. So let's say db.prepare, select all the records from tasks .run, and we'll return that as a response. Oops, it's an asynchronous function, so we'll need to do an await. And we'll need to convert this to a string. So let's have another look. So now we can see our data. We have some metadata here, and we have the results from our database. So there you have it. This is basically all you need to connect to the D1 database. But I don't find it too satisfying because we still have to write our SQL queries manually. So we can improve our experience by integrating the Drizzle ORM. So let's do that. So the first thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to add the Drizzle and DrizzleKit's dependencies. And now DrizzleKit. All right, so one useful feature of DrizzleKit is that we can introspect an existing database and it will generate a schema for us. So we'll be using that option, but firstly we need to generate a Drizzle configuration file. Okay, and we're going to import the define config function from DrizzleKit. And the DB credentials. I think we need a DB name, demo DB, and we also need a Wrangler config path. I think that should be all we need. Okay, and to generate the schema, we'll do npx drizzlekit introspect SQLite the driver libsql and file and out source /db and the file. Okay, I think I'm missing a step. So we'll need to know where our database is located. So let's open a new tab and let's find our database. It should be somewhere in the Wrangler directory. And we'll use this to create a file URL. No, it should be URL. Okay, it says that we need the libsql client package, so let's install it. Okay, let's try the command again. And now we have some files generated. We have our schema and a migration. Let's have a look at the contents. Okay, this shows the SQL to create our database. And what we want is the schema definition. So this is internal to Wrangler, I believe. So we'll just remove it. And now we'll create a function to set up the Drizzle object. Export function, create DB. And we'll pass it a D1 database. And we'll import Drizzle from Drizzle and we'll return Drizzle D1. Okay, so let's go back to our API routes, and we are going to replace the SQL with Drizzle. So we'll create the Drizzle database. Create DB. Let's select that from tasks. Okay, then that should be all, and let's check our API routes. So we run the server and then go back to our route. And now we see that it just gives us the results. So we verify that Drizzle is set up correctly. Okay, so we can see here that we can use the Drizzle query builder kind of API. And this can get us far, but I think we can have a better experience if we can do things like include related tables into our queries, and we can do that with the query functionality that Drizzle provides. But in order to do that, we need to make some additions to our schema. We need to define the relations. So we'll go back to our schema file. All right, so let's start by declaring the task relations. So export const task relations is assigned relations tasks. Okay, so task would have many task categories. And it will be the same for our categories table. So we'll just copy this and modify it. Categories, task categories, and finally, task category relations is relations on task categories. Okay. There will be one task, and the field would be task categories dot task ID, And the references would be task.id, and the category would be one, categories, fields, task categories dot category ID, and references categories dot ID. Okay, this should be it. If we go to the schema, okay, I think this was not here before, but I included it at some point, so I'll leave it as it is. So we need to include this. We need to import the schema and pass it as a second parameter to Drizzle. Okay, and then we can go back to our API route. Let's remove the old query and say Drizzle dot queries. Oh, I deleted the wrong thing. Okay, I need to say const Drizzle is assigned create DB. And now I can say const result is assigned with Drizzle dot query dot tasks dot find many with task categories with category true. Now let's see how that looks. Localhost 3000. Oh, it's not running? Okay. Let's go directly to the API route. And now we have a list of tasks with the related category, or the related categories, because a task can have many categories. Okay, let's see how it looks like from the other side of the relation. So we'll do a query to get all the categories and the related tasks. So base with categories, find many with task true. And let's go back to our API route. Okay, so we see the category here and the task categories table. And there we have the tasks. Awesome. So you can see the power that the Drizzle query functionality offers us. And that is basically all that we have for this video. Oh, I forgot one thing. So we need to deploy the application to the cloud to make sure that everything works there. So let's do a yarn deploy. Oh, I think I forgot one thing. So before we do that, we'll need to make sure that we have set the binding on the dashboard. So the Wrangler configuration is mainly to work locally, so we need to set up the bindings on the dashboard as well. So where we see D1 database bindings, we call it DB is the name, and then DB save. Let's see if it's too late. It's probably too late, so this might fail, but let's check it anyway. Okay, so this is because the binding was not available when we deploy the application, so we'll need to redeploy. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay then, an extra L. Okay, so there you have it. We have our categories and the related tasks. So this is it for the video. We saw how to generate a NextJS project and configure the D1 database. And additionally, we saw how to integrate the Drizzle ORM to get access to a powerful query engine. And if you like this kind of content, I'll be creating more videos about Cloudflare workers. So if you like that kind of content, you're welcome to subscribe. Thank you for watching.